Hi, Richard. Lovely to see you. Would you just like to start by introducing yourself? Who are you and where are you?
Thanks, Jill. I'm Richard Eaton, and I am actually a graduate of an international school, but I find myself today working in Berlin, Germany, where I'm a permanent resident of this city and this country, and I've been here since 2014. And I think right now we would all probably define ourselves as in the thick of managing, coping, struggling through a global pandemic.
Yeah, yeah. And all the leadership that brings to bear.
And all the challenges that brings to bear,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And as a founding member of the Leadership Mastermind program, you've very kindly offered to just give a few insights into your experience of the course so far. So I'm curious as to what made you join the program in the first place? What's enticed you in?
I think when talking to my colleagues who are doing coaching through Making Stuff Better, what we agreed when we signed on for a second round of coaching was that this is really valuable to have people who are focused just on you for a short period of time, once a month, who are available just for you when you need them. And the mastermind course is an extension of that. But it's not just your coach and their colleagues, it's other school leaders who are struggling with things similar to you right now in time and space, who are there for you at different times when you meet with your cohort. And they're there for you in different ways. There have been skill sessions where we're there for each other. We discuss the skills we're developing in breakout rooms. There will be, we haven't had them yet, but we're preparing for them, mastermind sessions where we bring our issues to the fore. And what are the things we want to talk about with these colleagues who are there for us, and how can they help coach us, contribute to the things we're facing right now in our profession?
Thanks. And as you said, this is the founding group. It's cohort 1. We're just partway in, and we've got a mastermind coming up. Even with all that said, being the beginning, what do you notice the impact has been on you so far? I know it's early days, but yeah, just give some reflections on that.
Sure. I will actually tell you something that just happened to me in this conversation. You asked me to describe myself, and I described myself in a very upbeat way. And I felt like I even described or communicated the challenges of going through a pandemic in an upbeat way. But something that I took away really recently from one of the sessions that we had, it was actually one of our group meetings, where we were talking about how do we present ourselves when we step into a room or when we step into a video chat? How can we present ourselves upbeat and lift everybody else up? Are we aware of the messages we're communicating with our body language, with our face? What are we saying to other people? And that's that was for me a very powerful reminder of what am I communicating to people. The other night I was in a chat with some other leaders, and I was watching them, and I was thinking, what are they communicating now in this conversation, and how do I want to communicate? But it's hard. It's hard. I'm from North America, and I interact with a lot of people who are European. And I think one of the perceptions sometimes that people have had of me as a North American is that I'm a little sometimes too expressive. And that's also something, and here I go, being very expressive, that I'm learning to monitor and reflecting on through these sessions. How can I also kind of, tone it down a little bit and show respect to my local context? So these are just thoughts I've had, and the way people communicate. Maybe people aren't so upbeat, and maybe it's culturally more appropriate not to be so upbeat sometimes. So these are just things that have come up for me in the course so far. And very recently that came up out of one of our sessions, Jill. So thank you.
Really useful. That's really useful. And you mentioned the skills session. Perhaps you could, we had a skills session not that long ago on the equality, diversity and inclusion agenda, delivered by Claire Stewart Hall. What stayed with you from that skills session, which is a very powerful topic?
Yeah. One of the things I raised when we reflected on that session was just how some of the other things that are happening in the world right now have added additional complexity to what we're going through. And as we face this pandemic that's ever present, there are also these other issues that are very opportunistic to deal with, but they feel like, oh my, how we're trying to climb this mountain, how are we going to climb that mountain? And I think that reminded me of the need to prioritize. And we can't do it all right now. We can't do everything right away, but there are some issues there that we need to start addressing. And I think what I said in one of our sessions was, while they're deeply institutional and structural issues, how can we, through our positions of leadership and power, perhaps subvert those deeply ingrained structural inequalities? And by subverting them, by confronting them in whatever way possible, we are creating a new, hopefully, set of institutional patterns. There
Wow.
you go.
Yeah, and I love that. I love what you said about subverting. Education is an act of subversion. And that kind of is what we're trying to do here at Leadership Mastermind. Is it's not about just continuing with the same construct of leadership development. There are so many leadership development courses, programs out there. And I'm a product of one of them in the UK, and it has its value. What we try to achieve in the mastermind is bring people from all around, literally all around the world, into one place to discuss the topics that are pertinent to them in real time. And it just so happened that it is in the middle of a pandemic. And it isn't necessarily around your typical Stephen Covey's, which again, publications which have merit and worth. It's actually based on positive psychology and the idea that you can look at things. You can choose to look at leadership in the way that you wish. And I wondered what your thoughts were on that, as opposed to, I dare to say, opposed to or compared to a more traditional leadership program. But have you noticed that difference? And if so, what is it that you like about it?
Well, there's a lot to dive in to there. One, you said there are people from all over the world. And as many of us who've worked in this profession have worked in other places, I think one of the quite valuable aspects of it, if I were speaking to someone, and I am, who might join the course, maybe you're in, and I'll give you a specific example. I used to work in Asia, in China, in Shanghai, actually. And there are people who are working in a context similar to mine. So maybe it has been valuable for them to share some of my experiences having worked in that context for them. And there are people now working in the course in a similar context to me, or in different contexts. What experiences from their context can I take and apply to mine? Not all are going to be applicable, but many will be. And that's quite a valuable opportunity. Coming back to other aspects of what you've asked me to reflect on. Wow, where to start, Jill? Honestly, I think that what's the most important thing for you to know? I'm
Well, you'll have been on, you're an educated man. I know you've just completed your PhD. So there are quite traditional ways of looking at leadership development. We decided to take the tack to actually base this on coaching principles, and that actually, instead of seeing it as a model of filling somebody up like a pint pot with water or fluid, actually all the resources to be an incredibly high quality, world-class leader are already there. It's just a case of bringing them out. It's a different model. And I just wondered if you'd noticed that difference.
Good. Yeah. I think there are different people in the course. There are some people who are bringing their practical experience. There are people who are bringing both practical and academic experience. There's someone in our course right now who's not a principal, who's actually in charge of facilities in their very large international schooling organization. And that's fascinating as well. So I think you get all of these, and that person is bringing a perspective that's relevant to me as a head of school. So I think what I've recognized is there's a real diversity of people in different roles. There are several people who are heads of school. There are several people who are section principals, who have middle leader roles, people with lots of different experience. Is it different from a more traditional leadership course? Well, right now everything feels different from a traditional leadership course because we're doing this mostly online and interactive, and a lot of this is new. Going to breakout rooms, that's kind of exciting. I think one of the things that came up in one of our sessions early on, which resonates for me, is look, I think this is a much more sustainable way of doing professional development, and none of us have to travel. We provide our own coffee for our meetings, or tea, or whatever. And I think it's the way professional development could have and should have been done a long time ago. There's something that is a bit of a contradiction when you're talking about not-for-profit education and sustainability and equality, that we all used to go off to really nice places and meet in really nice hotels and do our PD there. I think in some ways, this is a much more appropriate space. And in some ways, it also is safer, as someone else, I think, commented on, who's in our course. It's a very safe space to interact with each other. I would be able to answer that better further on in the course. As I said, I'm really looking forward to these mastermind sessions, because I think that's something that I've never done before. I've never really had a chance with other leaders to say, here's my problem, help me deal with it. And maybe we'll get into some of that, what I was talking about earlier, people from other parts of the world bringing their experience in, and then me having the choice to decide, well, what do I want to take away from this? So I think the best may actually be yet to come. I hope that helps.
Yeah, lovely. And just to finish up, if somebody was thinking about going on this program, what would you say? Just, gut feel, gut response.
I would say if you've enjoyed coaching, I think you're going to be diving a little deeper into this network and with some of these people who have a very specific set of philosophies of developing school leaders. And perhaps that's what's maybe coming back to what's different. I'd never done coaching before. And so for me, this is all still pretty new and pretty exciting as a way of developing myself. And so I would say if you're looking for something new and a different way to develop yourself, this is definitely different. And this is definitely a good forum for that. And I'm glad I've taken the risk, because in the beginning, I was a little apprehensive. To be honest, it felt like, well, am I going to be engaging in some sort of therapy here? But hey, maybe it is. And you know what? I'm totally cool with that now. I'm really happy with it. This is kind of, in some ways, also a little bit of leadership group therapy. And I think it's a really, for me, it's been a great thing. And if anyone is feeling that tension, I wouldn't let that distract you. I'd say, give it a shot.
And on that beautiful note, we'll end. Thank you so much, Richard, for your time and your thoughts, and have a beautiful day.
Thank you, Jill. Really a pleasure, and all the best. Take care of yourself.
Okay.